I've been camping for over 3 decades now, dating myself a little bit there, just a little bit. But I've also been backpacking consistently for over 25 years. And now I've adopted three awesome kids, and I love taking them out on adventures and trying to introduce them to the same love of the outdoors that I have and that I was given as a kid. I just want to share that love and passion, and that love runs deep for me. And it's been a part of who I am for pretty much my whole life, from Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, adventure guides, or back then it was called Indian guides. Those are some of the best memories that I have as a kid. And I was introduced to backpacking as a high schooler. Honestly, it kind of blew my mind. I was lucky enough to have a few dads from my church be willing to take a whole crew of high schoolers and drive from Texas to Colorado and give us a true experience of what backpacking had to offer. And I instantly became fascinated with being able to just carry everything I needed to go and survive in the woods. It was such a grand adventure. It was a huge boost of confidence to me, and it was the best way that I had yet to experience being out in nature. And still is today. So some of you dads may have been lucky enough to be taken out backpacking as a kid. And back then, it looked very different than it does today. Those dads that took us out in Colorado, they were carrying 80 to 100 pound packs with them just to be able to make sure that they were bringing everything they needed to be able to take care of these kids. And we had our own packs too, and they were probably pushing close to 40 pounds. So it was slow going and definitely type 2 fun at times. But I'm so thankful that I was given that experience. So today I want to talk about how far backpacking has come in our lifetimes and how what you may remember as a kid definitely looks very different today, and it's nowhere near as intimidating or hard as it would have been back then. Ultimately, I want to show you that there has never been a better or easier time to take kids backpacking than now. So I'm going to go through a list of backpacking gear categories and talk about what it took to go backpacking with these things back then, and then go through each one and talk about the technology improvements or advent of ultralight gear. And then I'll also give kid-specific gear recommendations for each category. So here are some examples of why backpacking was so much harder 20 to 30 years ago. All right, first is researching. There was no internet, no electronic maps, not even handheld GPS yet until like the mid 2000s-ish. So you had to be confident in being able to have and read a paper map and be able to triangulate a compass to be able to know where you were. It's one thing if you get lost yourself, but if you're going out there with a passel of kids with you who are relying on you, you better be darn sure you know where you are and where you're going. So along those same lines, there was no mobile communication, no satellite communicators, no cell phones. And so you had to rely on leaving detailed trip plans, sharing that with others, and then following through on that plan in order to stay safe and let people know where you were at. I think this had to be particularly intimidating when taking kids with you, especially not your own kids, and not being able to get a message out. There were a problem. You were entirely relying on yourself to be able to self-rescue or rescue others in your group. So moving into some more gear-related items, tents back then were large and heavy, and you pretty much didn't have a choice but to share a tent with a buddy or a partner just in order to split the weight. Food back then, prepackaged, dehydrated meals back then were either too expensive, non-existent, or tasted terrible. You know, there was some mountain house type meals around, but it wasn't great, and mostly we used oatmeal or ramen noodles, instant rice, you know, things like that. Things that we could cook in the pots and pans that we would carry, again, which were also heavier. And for some reason we would bring Tang. Don't ask me why, as it wasn't necessarily good, and I'm really glad this fell out of popularity because that seems like it was just a bad idea. Although, I don't know, maybe kids would actually be excited about it. They might love it. I might have to try that. Water filtering was a huge pain. You had to carry those big, like MSR style pump water filters with the hose that you would stick down in the water, and then you would sit there and pump it. It was hard to pump, and it would take like 5 to 10 minutes to like pump up just like a water bottle. It took forever, and it was a huge chore. Sleeping pads. Everyone used those foam pads that were just bulky and uncomfortable and cold. Inflatable pads were, you know, just kind of coming on the market. Those like early thermarests, those were still heavy, expensive, and not that much better. And in general, everything was so heavy that you wouldn't even consider bringing luxury items. That wasn't even a term back then, because you just wouldn't even consider it. Things like a chair or a hammock, a table, much less even a pillow. Mostly we would just use a rolled up sweatshirt for our pillow on our foam pad, shivering all night. Speaking of clothes, clothes were just our regular clothes. There was a lot of jeans and cotton t-shirts. I know. I can't believe that nobody died with all that cotton on. I don't know. I guess we were just tougher back then or something. Cotton kills, y'all. Trail runners were not even really a thing back then for hiking anyway. So we all wore big, heavy hiking boots. You know, they say 1 pound on your feet is like 5 pounds on your back. Those were heavy boots. We were effectively adding like 10 pounds to our pack weight that was already pushing 40 pounds. And speaking of the pack, everybody had those big, bulky external frame packs. Look, like this one right here. I still have one from when I used to use this back in the day. And you know, this thing weighs about 6 to 7 pounds just on its own, completely empty. And this thing is just, you know, it did the job, but it's uncomfortable, it's stiff. Although, looking at this, I think I discovered my love for pockets. All these little nooks and crannies, you know, where you like organize yourself. Still love me a backpack that has some good pockets. But anyway, nobody wants to be carrying this beast around. All right, enough of the spiel, enough of the, back in my day, we had to backpack uphill both ways. But despite having all of that to battle through, I was still completely hooked and never looked back. So now I want to talk about what's changed in all of these categories and why there's never been a better time to take kids backpacking. So now, thanks to ever-improving technology, better materials, communities such as the thru hiking community, the ultralighters, and even fast packers now. There's now so many amazing options for you to carry everything you need for your kids, feel extremely safe, and even comfortable. All right, so on the first one, researching. Obviously, the internet, so great, but tools specifically like Google Earth, AllTrails, OnX, immensely help you to e-scout and research and plan your trips. And you can have all this on your phone, offline, downloaded, so it's much easier to know where you are and where you're going in the backcountry. Specifically, I highly recommend OnX Backcountry. I use OnX all the time, and even if it's just for hiking, but even for planning and researching. All right, next up is mobile communication. Today we're beginning to have satellite communication possibilities straight from our iPhones. Apple's doing some amazing work regarding implementing satellite technology into their OS. And today it's very basic, you know, SOS type functionality and is available for use today. And I think that over the next few years, but even without that, I still recommend using devices like this, the Garmin InReach Mini. This makes it affordable and approachable, you know, lightweight to carry. It makes it possible to actually have conversations with your loved ones where you can text through the app on your phone, through this device, back and forth, and have two-way communication, as well as ensuring that you have the peace of mind that safety is right at the push of a button. You know, there was a story here in Oregon, even just this past Father's Day, where there was a father and a daughter out hiking, and the daughter hurt her leg and wasn't able to hike out. The dad was able to SOS out, and they came in and airlifted both the daughter, the father, and their dog that was with them out at the helicopter, got her to safety. Pretty cool story. You know, it was 3 dads in the helicopter on Father's Day rescuing the girl and her father. So happy ending there. They were able to make it out, but it was possible because of devices like this. Tent options. Larger tents are actually now affordable and lightweight so that you can easily carry by yourself a 3 or 4 person tent that can house your entire family or you and your kid or kiddos. And there's a lot of great options for that. I've got 2 recommendations for you. One of them is the Ampex 3-person backpacking tent, and I'm going to have a full review coming out on this one. It's a newer brand and a newer tent out on the market, and it's got a lot of great features and bells and whistles on it, and a low price tag. It only weighs about 4 pounds, so this would be perfect for you and 1 or maybe 2 other kids. Another option is the Climate Maxfield 4-person. You know, Climate is famous for their sleeping pads, but they've recently come into the tent world. And I did a full review on this on my channel of the 4-person tent. It's a very roomy tent, and you could definitely fit you and probably 2 kids, or even husband and a wife and 2 kids, or dad and 3 kids, some kind of configuration such as that. That's another very affordable and viable option for carrying a large tent for you and your family. Food. Backpacking meals no longer need to suck. There's a huge variety of cuisines in the dehydrated, freeze-dried market out there, and they're actually good. You know, they're slightly pricey, but the options are endless these days. It's maybe a little bit more than the cost of a fast food meal. It means that you can eat well in the backcountry. They're nutritious and full of protein and actually has whatever flavor that you actually prefer. You could probably find it in a backpacking meal these days. One brand I love is Peak Refuel. It's packed with protein and the flavor is amazing. I haven't really found one that I haven't liked, but go out there and try different brands, try different flavors, just explore the possibilities out there because there's so much good food on the market now. Goodbye and good riddance to the ramen noodle days. All right, next up, water filtering these days is a dream. I mean, it can't get much better. You just scoop your pouch into a mountain stream, screw the lid on, and take a sip. And you're drinking fresh mountain water right away. No waiting, no pumping, no gear, no getting your backpack off, none of that stuff. It's fast, it's easy, it's convenient, lightweight, and affordable. With filters like the Catadine Be Free, it's like you don't even really need to think about it anymore. And specifically, a fantastic kid backpacking option is the Platypus Gravity Works filter system, where you can have a large platypus bladder that you can go and fill up in the water source and then hang it from a tree and just let it drip into another bladder or bottle over time. And so that way you can have a large amount of water available for you in camp. The whole family can, work or use off of that one. Works great for groups as well, but it's a fantastic option for kids. You don't have to carry multiple filters or filter water into all the kids' separate water bottles. They can just fill up their own off of the clean water bladder. All right, I think inflatable sleeping pads might be the biggest game changer since you and I were kids. It makes sleeping so much better. You can actually get good sleep in the backcountry these days. Compared to suffering through on those hard, cold foam pads, the pads that are out there today, it can almost feel like you're sleeping in your bed at home. And another advent to this technology, a fantastic kid-friendly option is the double sleeping pad. You can have a sleeping pad that fills up your whole tent, and so you can kind of snuggle your kiddos in there, and it helps with them not slipping and sliding off of the pad in the night. And I love the Climate double sleeping bag. It's lightweight, easy to use, and really comfortable. Fantastic option for kids. And now, because of all of that, we get to have luxury items. We get to do things like bring chairs or maybe even a hammock. It's doable now, and it only adds a couple pounds to the pack. You're gonna be happier, your kids are gonna be happier if you have a place to sit. I love the Helinox Chair Zero personally as one of the lightest weight and most comfortable chairs on the market. They're a little bit expensive, so a slightly more affordable option is the REI Flex Lite Air, or even just the Flex Lite if you're really on a budget. Those are a little bit lower to the ground. I find that they're not as comfortable for me, being a larger, dad bod, let's be honest. And but for kids, they're great because they're a little bit lower. My kids have found those chairs to be super comfortable and they love those. Moving on to clothing, there are fantastic kid-friendly hiking clothes available now, ranging from sun shirts and hoodies, lightweight, breathable clothing, to full-on jumpsuits for rain protection for little toddlers. Specifically, I love the Terramar sun shirts for kids. They're lightweight, moisture wicking, and they've got these great hoodies. Keeps your kids cool in the hot days and protected from the sun. And if you're expecting a lot of rain, I love the Okai Wear jumpsuits that are wonderful for little kids that like to jump in puddles. But there's even options like the Frog Togs ultra light, ultra cheap rain suits that are kind of like a backup just in case. They have youth sizes in those now. All right, for your feet, trail runners are a great option for kids and for dads. If you're going to be going out carrying, a 40 to 50 pound pack full of, stuff for your kiddos, you may want to have hiking shoes. I am a big fan and proponent of hiking boots. But for the kiddos, They don't need boots. They're carrying light loads, and they're gonna be happier and better off in little trail runners or tennis shoes with socks on them. Don't worry about waterproof shoes or anything like that, because they're probably gonna jump in the puddles anyway and get water on the inside. And so they're gonna be better off just wearing shoes that can dry. Just make sure you bring them an extra pair of socks and they're gonna be good to go. All right, last but not least, the backpack itself. Ultralight backpacks these days have gotten ridiculously light. But if you're wanting to take kids out, I don't necessarily recommend using one of those, because you're probably going to be carrying a little bit heavier than, an ultralight load. But there are amazing heavy-duty backpacks these days that are great at hauling tons of gear and heavy loads. You can have everything you need for the kiddos and be completely comfortable hiking on the trail. So for example, check out this Mystery Ranch backpack that I have. This is the TerraFrame 65. And so this is definitely capable of carrying, 50 plus pound loads. And this has an awesome feature on it where it can actually come apart, where you can actually separate the frame from the pack here. There's actually what's called a load shelf in here, which was taken from the hunting community. And so you can actually expand this and be able to put something in here, like a larger tent, or carry some extra water containers or something like that. Whatever you might need to be able to keep you and your kiddos happy, you can actually load extra gear, odd-shaped gear, things like that that you might need, put that in here, and be able to carry that completely comfortably. So I love packs like that for that reason, utilizing other kind of technology, being able to carry a heavy load super comfortably. And also on the backpack topic, there's a lot of kid-friendly, kid-specific backpacking options. So let me show you. I have these REI Tarn series backpacks, and I just love these backpacks. I've got the Tarn 12 and the Tarn 40. This has been great for my little, 5, 6-year-old. He's almost a 7-year-old now, and so I'm thinking I'm gonna upgrade to the Tarn 18, I think it is, for him. But this has been fantastic, and it just helps him be able to carry a water bottle and some snacks, and maybe a stuffy or a toy or something like that. Just helps him to be able to carry a little bit in his backpack. He gets to kind of feel part of the crew, and it's easy to stuff things in here. One of the things I love most about this is that it is hydration bladder compatible, and actually highly recommend using hydration bladders for kids. I'm not a huge fan of them for myself, especially for backpacking, but for hiking with kids, I found that that's a fantastic option, because they can get a drink whenever they need to, and this way they drink more often, and it's just a great option for them to carry as much water as they need and then be able to get it easily and whenever they need it. And so this is the Tarn 40, and this is a really cool pack. This is one that, it can fit smaller kids, but then it does a great job of growing with them. So this one, it can fit probably 7-year-olds, somewhere in there, depending on the size, but then it's got these Velcro back on it, and the straps can adjust for a very wide range, so it's gonna grow with them throughout childhood and maybe even through the teenage years. So it's one that they can have for a long time, and a fantastic investment for a kid that they can use for 10 plus years probably. Keep in mind that before 8 years old, the kids should only be carrying up to about 10% of their body weight. That really is just some water or some snacks and maybe a toy or something like that. Something fun for them. But after 8 years old, most kids can carry up to 20% of their body weight. So for some kids, that could be carrying 15 to 20 pounds on their own. And these days with ultralight gear, that could be almost an entirely self-contained, self-sufficient kit all on their own back. But with dad there to help, you guys are going to be able to carry more than enough weight for the gear that you guys need to, be happy and safe. All right, so there's the list. And on top of that, I have 2 bonus recommendations for you. If you're planning on doing backpacking with some little ones like babies or toddlers, there's a fantastic gear option out there for you. It looks like this. This is called the Trail Magic Carrier, and it's basically just a piece of canvas with these straps and carabiners on it. And this thing is awesome for carrying little kids that can't quite hike very far themselves enough. It's meant for 1-year-old and up. So once they start hiking, but they can't quite hike very far, you could still carry this. The way this works is it connects onto the straps of your backpack on the tops and on the bottoms, and it just kind of creates a little sling so for the baby to sit, for the toddler to sit in there. And then that way you can still be carrying a full size fully loaded backpack, and then have this little carrier on the front that you can then, pop the kid in and out of for when they want to walk or when they want to be carried. All right, second bonus recommendation is get your kids some hiking sticks. I have found that it helps my kids immensely when I give them hiking sticks. Typically, I give them one each, and they just love having the stick when they're hiking. It helps them feel more stable on rough terrain. It just kind of helps them feel like excited about the hiking experience. I use hiking poles, so they want to be like dad and have their own hiking pole, and it kind of keeps them moving down the trail. And occasionally, yeah, they ask me to carry it or something like that, but I don't really mind sticking it in the pack or something if I need to, because to me, it's worth it for them to have it for the miles it gets them down the trail. All right, so now I have a question for you, and I'd love to see your answers in the comments. How old were you when you first went backpacking, and what stands out in your mind as the thing that has changed most drastically since then? Looking forward to hearing your answers, and look, if you're intimidated by this, here's my advice. Just start small. You can carry a pretty heavy load for like a mile or two, and then you work on building up your mileage and collecting better and lighter gear over time. All right, if this was helpful or interesting to you, make sure, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. I talk about this kind of stuff all the time, so come along, join me on the channel. I'd love to have you in the Dad Camps community. And as always, don't forget, you got this, Dad.